answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
The kind of people that are trying to run out of office, I mean, they're just good traditional kinds of Democrats you would have expected in New York City now. And now this has just become, really, it's just been the dancing days of the dirtbag left, you know, with some of these candidates are outrageous. You know, you have candidates, they abolish ICE, abolish the police, abolish the border. And she even said F Kamala Harris and more of these outrageous kinds of things. And then you have like Mandami. He was grieving. A Hamas sniper was killed by Israel just the other day, and he was grieving that. I mean, these are emerging the full pro-Hamas wing.
That is Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman, Democrat. I've been running a commentary today talking about just what he said then, that calling these dirtbags on the left are running good quality, moderate, maybe still more liberal by our view, candidates out of office. The progressive Hamas wing taking over. Where can Democrats find a home? The Republican tent is open, and it's sane. Got some news I need to cover for you very quickly. First of all, the U.S. Supreme Court declaring that the president can regulate asylum requests at the border, which means at the border we can say, no, you have to turn around and go back. Now, we've already closed the border, but this is just, again, putting another nail in the coffin of the Joe Biden open border policy, putting an end to it. And I'll tell you this, because you're going to hear it from the left. If you happen to come across it, they're going to talk about, oh, gas prices are up. Inflation is pushing up again. It is correct. The Federal Reserve favored inflation index in May up at the fastest pace in 3 years. I'm telling you that, at the fastest pace in 3 years. That's based upon May. Now, generally, they exclude food and energy, so-called core prices. But this time they put them in because gasoline prices were up 6.5%. But it's beginning to fall already. But I want to point that out to you because I don't want you to say, oh, Larry did not tell us about inflation going up when we keep saying we are hurting at gasoline prices. I'm telling you, keep watching the pump. Things are changing. Welcome to Larry Connors USA. First hour. And we are locked and loaded both hours. You cannot miss a single part of this program coming up today. And reminding you with Larry Connors USA, you're always going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave each hour with more information than you have right now. And remember, if you miss any part of it, pull it up as a podcast at NewsTalkSTL or LarryConnorsUSA.com. You can subscribe for free at LarryConnorsUSA.com. We'll dump the program into your email box every day. And you can also pull up the podcast at Larry Connors USA Facebook. In our next hour, are you listening? New York City fifth graders, in one of their class exercises, were doing a dance, acting like they'd been shot, falling to the floor in their dance. Not just that they were shot, but the premise was they were shot by cops. This is our New York City education system. We'll get into that in more detail with a special guest coming up in the next hour. Later this hour, evidence that European nations are clearly losing their identity. And we'll have details of that for you. And they're losing it because of the Islamic migration inside their nations, which they allowed, and now they can't stop. The story behind the story, before we wrap up this hour, is this month, 1945, the U.S. entered a police action in Korea under President Truman. A police action I remember my dad cursing and muttering in his later years. That was no police action. That was war. That'll be our story behind the story coming up later today. We were talking earlier about where can the Democrats possibly find a party. I'll tell you about a party that's going on tonight. I want to remind you, or tomorrow night, rain or not, we are going to have our 5th anniversary party for the station at Frankie Martin's in Cottleville. There may be a few showers. What the heck? Come on out and join us. Many of us will be there. Be glad to see you and talk with you. It begins at 7 o'clock officially, up until 10, but some of us will be there as early as 6. We'll see you at Frankie Martin's in Cottleville tomorrow night. Right now, though, back to the party that's in collapse, and even Van Jones, CNN political analyst, admits the same.
Well, first of all, New York City matters because the two most exciting left-wing candidates are here, AOC and Mamdani, but also this is the stronghold for the establishment, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. This is a battle between the establishment and this insurgency, and the roof is collapsing on the Democratic Party establishment tonight.
Yeah, he was talking about what was happening in New York City the other night. The progressive candidates supported by Mamdani swept the board. And as he pointed out, Fetterman, they have taken good moderate candidates and wiped them from the board. And Senator Rand Paul says it is alarming that people in this nation are voting for socialists. I couldn't agree with him more. Another viewpoint of what's happened in New York and then how it may ripple across the nation with the crazies of the left right now, Miranda Devine.
There's no honor among thieves. And I think, you see Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and so on. They're like comical Ali while, Baghdad's on fire. They're saying nothing to see here. It's an unmitigated disaster for them. But it's a good thing for Republicans because, for one thing, they can point to these fringe characters with their repellent policies that nobody in America wants, and differentiate themselves in the midterms and sort of paint the entire party as being a party of crazies.
Yeah, and it's not hard to do that, is it? Stephen Miller, White House spokesman, deputy counsel, says, you know why they really had such a big sweep? Because of the migration policy the Dems put into place. Open border. Thank you, Joe Biden. How many illegals voted in the New York City election? There's where you're going to find the support for socialism. So they're not really Americans like Rand Paul's complaining about, and yet there are many Americans falling in line with them. But then you look at the leadership inside the Democrat Senate, as led by Chuck Schumer. President Trump says, this guy has done a 180, reference the belief and support for Judaism.
Well, Schumer's lost his way. He's become essentially a Palestinian. I think it's the greatest transformation of a political position I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer, who was a strong supporter of Israel, and he's become 100% Palestinian. In fact, I've asked for a beautiful, beautiful silk outfit to be sent in the Palestinian tradition. I'm going to send it to him as a birthday present. Now, it's the greatest transformation of a political ideology I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer is Jewish, and he was a strong supporter of Israel. Not that strong, because he let the Obama, even though he was supposed to, he let the JCPOA get through. He could have fought that harder with Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? So, but Chuck Schumer's a Palestinian now.
Chuck Schumer is a Palestinianer. I laugh, and yet at the same time, it's horrific, and it should be horrific inside the Jewish community that Chuck Schumer is siding more with the PLO right now. Take note of this. Take note, Denmark plans to ban public broadcasting of the Islamic call to prayer. Critics say it's an incessant transmission from mosques showing disrespect to the wider community, making parts of the country feel like a suburb of Islamabad. Do you think that's a good idea to shut down the public broadcasting of prayer? Now, before you jump in and say, yes, I want to take a moment for you to think one moment. When church bells ring at cathedrals, be they Catholic or Christian or whatever denomination, reminding people of prayer and God, you hear them whenever they ring. The new cathedral in St. Louis, on the hour, up to certain times of night through the early morning. So would you have to say you shut down the bells? I don't want to do that. But this call to prayer that takes throughout the day by the Islamic Muslim religion, yeah, I think that does say again, where are we? Are we in the USA or are we in Islamabad? And Nigel Farage, the UK reform leader, says, I look at the anti-Semitism that's happening across Europe. Now, I have told you previously, watch what happens in Europe. Listen to the reform minister from UK.
I saw it at first hand in Brussels and Strasbourg. The change in the 20 years I was there. I mean, I don't think anybody who's Jewish now lives in central Brussels. And I saw, even a decade ago, kids going into school in Strasbourg, schools with quite a high Jewish population, with armed soldiers accompanying the kids into school every morning. As I say, Brussels, literally, the only Jewish people that live in Brussels are wealthy ones that live in gated communities with private security. And you know what? I fear that London is going the same way. I genuinely fear that London is going the same way. A lot of Jewish people I've spoken to are seriously considering leaving the country.
That's pretty direct. And London, he fears, is going the same way. He also made a point that the reason they have reached this point in history is because leadership has failed the UK and Europe.
I'm afraid the whole establishment has run away from radical Islam. We don't even try. I mean, you know, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood thrives in this country. It's the main spreader of hate and extremism in Britain today, yet it has offices all over the country. I mean, you know, sensible Arab Muslim states prescribe those organizations and treat extremist terrorists for exactly what they are. And our gutless, cowardly political class have done their best to turn a blind eye to all of it. And now we've got growing sectarianism. It's even in our politics. Even in our politics. So we have to stand up and say, no, sorry, we don't operate like that here. If you don't like it, tough.
But they have been acting like that. He pointed out that police in Britain are being trained to treat racial abuse as, quote, the most serious offense, regardless of whether it's true or not. Well, just before the House and Senate took off on a 2-week break, Trump got key Republicans to flip and go against the Democrats' attempt to rein in his war powers in Iran. He whipped the Republicans back in line to support efforts in Iran. It took a closed-door tongue-lashing and name-calling.
The Senate has reversed course on a measure to limit President Trump's war powers in Iran. One day after passing a resolution to pull forces from the conflict, senators voted 50 to 47 against advancing a similar measure. 2 Republicans who had supported the earlier resolution changed their votes after meeting with the president and receiving a White House briefing on Iran. Trump called the new vote a message that puts Iran on notice.
The president on Capitol Hill engaged engages in a shouting match with Senator Bill Cassidy, the Republican from Louisiana, who President Trump, by the way, endorsed against in his Louisiana primary, ultimately causing him to lose. Ultimately, Bill Cassidy getting a briefing later yesterday from the White House, from Vice President J.D. Vance about the war with Iran, and then effectively changing his vote on yet another war powers resolution that came up for a vote last night. The president touting that new vote up on Truth Social, saying that this completely exonerates him and that this clears him to continue his negotiations with Iran to find a solution to this conflict. At the same time, nothing can erase a vote in Congress. That vote earlier this week did happen. Congress did call on the president at one point to end the war with Iran. Obviously, Republican senators got new information, changed their votes. But yesterday, President Trump apparently quite frustrated with Senate Republicans, at least according to some of the ones who were in the room. Here's Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana.
The president was, and he is mad as a murder hornet about the war powers vote yesterday, and I don't blame him.
I don't blame him. And boy, did he did. They say he did some name calling and shouting behind the closed door. They got the message. Florida Senator Rick Scott says, good.
Look at what the president's saying, and look at what Secretary Rubio is saying. That's reality, not what the Iranians are saying. The Iranians are full of crap. I mean, they're doing it for their own people, trying to intimidate them. But the Iranians are scared to death what President Trump will do. Nobody wants to be the president of Iran right now because they know they'll get their heads blown off if they don't do the right thing. This president has scared the living daylights out of Iran, and I believe we will get a deal that brings peace to the Middle East.
God willing, we will. And get the Senate Republicans turned around to help support Trump instead of stabbing him in the back. Oh, by the way, the other day, with the Knicks winning, even though they won the game, fans poured into the streets causing trouble. One Knicks fan was on video grabbing a trash can, carrying it over and dumping it into the street. That person has now been fined $75 littering fine, $100 fine for impeding sanitation operation. You know who this was? This is identified as a J.P. Morgan Chase executive, director of DEI at J.P. Morgan. Fired. Well, she could lift the trash can. Maybe she can get a job on a trash truck. Put her to work in the sanitation department. There's a perfect DEI program for you. And by the way, 38 DEI officials apparently are overseeing the University of Washington Health Equity Office. I'll get more to that to you in our second hour. Now, under Biden, of course, we also had U.S.-sanctioned kidnapping of children. That's exactly what we had. My guest will be dealing with that point. And our story behind the story, the forgotten war, Korea. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, Think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I want to repeat for you what I told you at the top of the hour. The U.S. Supreme Court today declaring the president can regulate asylum requests at the border. In other words, you can reject them at the border, not allow them in our country for weeks, months, years, until they finally have an adjudication hearing to decide if they do or do not get asylum. That is a win for this administration. And it is another nail in the coffin of the Joe Biden open border policy. And within that policy that Joe Biden had, we had hundreds of thousands of children brought in. My guest is a co-author of the book, The CPS Pipeline, State-Sanctioned Kidnapping, Maureen Steele. Maureen, your reaction first to the Supreme Court ruling and how it fits inside your book on state-sanctioned kidnappings.
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction, like you said, Larry, and it's a pleasure to be on your show today. You know, our children are our most precious commodity, and you know, if we have a society that cannot protect our most vulnerable, what kind of society are we? But to your end, you know, 350,000 migrant children have gone missing in the United States, and that pales in comparison to the 500,000 children that are within our country right now that are being held hostage in foster care through CPS, through family court systems, through judges that are nothing more than criminals in black robes, destroying the American family. And so that's really what the book CPS Pipeline is about. It kind of outlines that in simplistic terms for people to understand how the system really works.
All right, I don't want to break that down, but before we do, you said that we, I think your wording, I might be off, but you're saying that we are allowing or whatever, but the fact is, we just simply accepted that they were going to be able to come into this country, even if they just had a note in their pocket saying, call this number, it's a relative. By the Biden process, they were not vetting anybody. We don't know where these children went, if they went into sex dens right away, if they're still alive today or being tortured for the rest of their lives.
Correct. And I want to be clear to people from the research I did for this book. This is not a flaw in the system. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a system that needs repairing. This was by design. The system is working exactly as it was designed to do.
All right, now reference the CPS pipeline specifically. As you said, you were investigating the CPS, and again, explain what the CPS role is supposed to be.
Well, Child Protective Services, like so many other things that they try to sell us, Larry, is that, oh, this is going to protect children. I mean, that sounds good on its surface. On the surface, who wouldn't want to protect children? And they make it sound like it's, child abuse is rampant. It isn't. Most parents are good parents. I mean, no parent is perfect. We all make mistakes as parents. But if you gave a child who, even had a dad who was, had a little bit of a temper, maybe drank a little bit too much, you give that kid a choice. Do you want to stay with your family, or do you want us to rip you out of here and put you in a home with 8 kids and strangers? The child's going to choose to stay with their family every day of the week. 85% of children that are taken from their families, there is no charges. There's no charges of abuse. So most kids are removed for neglect, and neglect can be just about anything. You let your kid play in the front yard without a jacket on, and it was 50 degrees. That can be classified as
you give them a
neglect.
spanking, you're charged with abuse because you spanked your child. Now, Michelle, I know you're also a co-founder of the American Made Foundation, but with the foundation now, you're expanding your focus on adult guardianship and protective services reform to help protect these children. I highly praise what you're doing, but what kind of fight are you facing?
Oh, it's enormous. These agencies have enormous power, and the Chevron deference is completely ignored in state courts. Even in federal court, with the Chevron deference, for those that don't know, it basically overturned the right for a judge to just rubber stamp whatever these 3-letter agencies say, but they're still doing it.
Right.
And they don't care, so they sort of sidestep that. But guardianship cases are rampant all over the country. And they're targeting the wealthy, and this is what's really interesting, because with CPS, they tend to target people that are of lower income, but with the guardianship cases, it's people that are very wealthy. You spend $200,000 planning your estate, and then when you die, they take it. They go into probate court, and oftentimes it's the same judges, if you can believe that, Larry, that are working in family court doing these probate court crimes. And CPS, Child Protective Service, and Adult Protective Services are in the same office. In many cases, it's the same people.
You're suggesting
process.
It's a laundry scheme in addition to being an extortion scheme.
Oh, it's a RICO. These are RICO cases, and we're building them. This needs to stop. But again, they're attacking our most vulnerable, your elderly, and they really look for like the black sheep of the family that contests the will. And as soon as they do that, they appoint a guardian. I know of cases where parents have gone missing, parents that were completely with it and totally together. They have psychiatrists that are on the payroll that will diagnose your parent as incompetent. And you go on vacation with your husband, you come home and mom's gone, and there's cases where they can't find their mother for an entire year, and she's been literally held hostage in all of these homes. This sounds far-fetched, but I have so many families that I can tell you that this has happened to, where their $8 million ranches have been liquidated, the cattle all sold, and there's nothing left of the estate when they're done.
And under the guise of protecting the children.
And protecting vulnerable adults. Yeah. It's a total scam. It's absolutely disgusting. It's terrible, and it's happening in our country every single day.
What is it you're talking? They have the United Law Coalition that's been expanded. What exactly is that, and what's happening there?
Right. So this is the group that's bringing these lawsuits and building these RICO cases, and trying to pierce that veil of immunity that these judges in family court has, and CPS has. Everyone has immunity. They don't have immunity from committing crimes by falsifying records, by deprivation of rights under color of law. So what we've put together is a group of attorneys throughout the entire country, Pacific Justice Institute being one of them, where we have hundreds of lawyers, poised with their pen, and good lawyers that are constitutionalists, that are willing to jump in on these cases and help and roll up their sleeves and get it done. They're also willing to do it in some cases for free, in some cases for $150 an hour when they normally charge maybe $500. So, this is hope for the American people as well. We have some good lawyers out there that still have a conscience, that still believe in the rule of law and still believe in our Constitution.
Where is the transparency and the oversight in all this to begin with?
That's that is what is the trick here, because it's children. They're doing it under cover of darkness. Oh, we have to seal the records because, these are juveniles. So there is no oversight. And, and you have all these parasitic agencies around them. You have county mental health centers, anger management classes, parenting classes. Everyone is paid out of the same pool, and no one is incentivized to let you out of the system once you're in it. They only make money if you stay in it. So it's corrupt, and it's bent in favor of the state and bent in favor of, Hillary Clinton's Adoption and Safe Families Act. That's what really monetized the heads of these kids.
Yeah, and Maureen, even before that, decades ago, I recall constantly battling with the state. A child in state foster care dies in the facility, and they will not release information saying, well, we need to protect the child. You did not protect the child. The child is dead.
Right, you protect the perpetrators. Yeah, and you protect the perpetrators, because these people where the children end up dying, these bad foster parents, they can literally just move to the next state over. If this happened in Florida, they could go to Georgia and set up shop again. And so, our children aren't protected at all. It's doing just the opposite.
Can you give me...
like I said, 85%.
I'm sorry, please. I didn't mean to interrupt there. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say 85% of children are taken where there's no crime at all, no neglect at all. They're taken for 15 months anyway. And so you don't need as many foster homes. And the government keeps putting more money into more foster care. We don't need it even as many as we have, because these kids should still be home with their families.
What can parents do to make sure that does not happen?
When someone knocks on your door, cooperate, stay calm. As soon as you raise your voice or you get flustered, and most people do, now you have an emotional problem, a mental health problem, an anger problem. So they twist normal reactions of any parent trying to protect their child into a reason to take them.
Then they're going to ask if you have a gun. Then they're going to ask if you have a gun in the house, and that's going to be another reason to take the child.
Oh yes, and Larry, God forbid, like you're cooking dinner and have half a glass of wine, when it's out on the counter. Now you're an alcoholic. It's all twisted. And I'm writing another book, State Sanctioned Lies, and I have whistleblowers that will testify to that. These CPS workers are actually taught how to twist all the evidence to make a bigger case out of it.
I'm going to have to book you again for a future program to get into more detail on this. Maureen Steele, co-founder of American Made Foundation, which are now focusing more on children and protective services reform. The book is titled The CPS Pipeline, State-Sanctioned Kidnapping. Maureen, thank you very much for your time and for detailing a lot of this for us.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Larry. Anytime. It was a pleasure.
We will do it again. Thank you, Maureen Steele. It's frightening. It is frightening, isn't it? And like she said, they're trained to kind of come in and see if they can find anything that would suggest that child is in danger. I told you before about one of my girls when I went to spank her. She said, I'm going to call Child Services. They'll come pick me up. I said, oh, wait a minute. I brought her the phone number and said, here's their number. When you get your spanking, you can call them. They'll come take you. I'll sleep in my bed. What do you want to do? She didn't call. Coming up, the story behind the story.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's, locally owned, can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Boom, 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 boom. Gonna shoot you right down. Take you
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Impressions of the American build-up for the Battle of Korea include this view of the aircraft carrier Bataan, ready to sail from Norfolk, Virginia. At a West Coast port, amphibious tractors of a Marine division make their own passage out to a big landing craft which will transport them to the battlefront. Ammunition of all kinds is obviously a priority shipment, and with the situation in Korea as it is, speed of dispatch is most important. And manpower, GIs on their way to support their hard-pressed comrades. As reinforcements leave, President Truman promises victory, however long the job may take.
Now, that was what you would have seen if you were going to a movie theater in 1950. This month in 1950, word being released that Truman was ordering, let me put it that way, U.S. air, naval, ground forces to South Korea to help them fight against an invasion by communist North Korea. But he wanted to bypass Congress. He wanted to secure a UN mandate for it. So he established the precedent of committing troops via, quote, this is a police action to stop the spread of communism. That's a key phrase, police action. And it took place this month, 1950, the police action in Korea. My dad, I remember having discussions with him about this, and he said it was not a police action, it was war. He had just returned from World War II, which ended 5 years earlier. And I don't know if he was still directly involved in the military at that point or then got called back because they were activating anyone and everyone they could, and especially if they'd had prior combat experience. So he got called back into that. Never discussed details of what he did. He just, like that generation, many of them just don't talk about it. And many of today's generation that are involved in our wars, they don't talk about it either. But they were there and what they saw. But either way, he's 5 years back from the end of World War II, married, has a family starting, me being the first child, and he's looking forward to a future. And he was already trying to find jobs, and a lot of GIs were looking for jobs, and he ended up driving a gasoline truck over the windy hills of East Texas. My mother absolutely was frightened every time he took off on that trip. Now, I was too young to know that at that time. Later, he got out to West Texas and became an oil man, and that was also dangerous work, but she considered it safer than what he was doing and driving gasoline trucks around all the time. Well, during the World War II, he was in the Army Air Force, and he was flying with gliders. And every landing for a glider is a crash landing. And they would land troops and equipment behind enemy lines, and then the crew, if they survived, would make their way back across the lines and then be assigned to another glider to take it up. But he thought that was past. It was a nightmare that might still come at night, but his daily life was something he was focusing on. And then the police action came as North and South Korea came to odds.
Korea is divided down the middle, along the 38th parallel. The Soviets occupy north of the line. The Americans move into the south. By 1948, there are two new Korean states, each reflecting the politics of its occupier. South Koreans vote to establish a republic, electing a president, Syngman Rhee. In the north, Kim Il-sung is made premier of a pro-Soviet communist dictatorship. Korea becomes the center of the Cold War struggle. Border conflicts break out almost immediately. 38,000 Koreans, most of them civilians, are killed before war even begins.
Civilians killed even before the war began, the police action, and most of them South Koreans. That's a part of a piece from the National War Museum, as are some of the other sound bites you'll be listening to. Again, after the end of World War II in 1945, Korea, which had been a Japanese colony for 35 years, was divided by the Soviet Union and the U.S. into two occupation zones at the 38th parallel, with plans for a future independent state. But then the infighting began, and then the fighting between the North and South, both claiming to be the sole legitimate government of Korea. And then the communists saw an opportunity to get back involved. North Korea made their move. Harry Truman responded.
In the pre-dawn hours of June 25, 1950, North Korea launches a surprise invasion across the 38th parallel. They are backed by logistics and arms from the Soviet Union and China. In 3 days, the North Koreans have captured Seoul, the southern capital. In Washington, President Truman orders U.S. troops into battle.
On Sunday, June 25th, Communist forces attacked the Republic of Korea. This attack has made it clear beyond all doubt that the international communist movement is willing to use armed invasion to conquer independent nations. The free nations face a worldwide threat. It must be met with a worldwide defense.
The United Nations, with the Soviet Union abstaining, votes to send an international fighting force to aid the South Koreans. The help is desperately needed. South Korea's army is disorganized and poorly equipped. Truman taps General Douglas MacArthur, an architect of World War II's victory in the Pacific, to head the multinational force.
So he's got a good leader, it appears at that time, but that was not going to hold throughout the entire war that didn't end until 1953. Oh, I'm sorry, police action, as they were calling it. If my dad were alive today, he would be on my back for, again, referring to it as a police action. But that is effectively what it was called by the administration. And again, why was it, quote, a police action instead of a war? We'll go back over that. So there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
U.S. and UN forces are squeezed into the southeast edge of the country. Their backs against the wall to the south, MacArthur orders a surprise amphibious attack at Incheon on the western shore of the peninsula. It is a pivotal victory against the North Koreans. MacArthur believes that he is well positioned to drive the communists out of Korea entirely, ending the war. President Truman reluctantly agrees, afraid of escalating the war by drawing China onto the battlefield. The Southern offensive gains momentum as U.S. and UN forces break through the stranglehold in Busan. They encounter little resistance from the exhausted communist troops. By November, they have pushed the enemy to the banks of the freezing Yalu River, which separates Korea and China.
But we were not done. They were not done either. Now, keep in mind, when Truman decided we were going to move forces in on his order, again, he chose to bypass Congress, get a UN mandate, and set the precedent of committing troops via a police action to stop the spread of communism. Well, what did that involve? U.S. Army Reserve and Army National Guard infantry soldiers home trying to start new lives. As I was mentioning about my father, they were called back. New soldiers were conscripted, brought in. Those already in were assigned. But basically, those sent to North Korea were found that they were short of nearly everything to deal with the North Koreans. Short artillery, ammunition, heavy tanks, ground support aircraft, even effective anti-tank weapons. Some Army combat units sent into Korea were supplied with worn-out M1 rifles or carbines because they did not have enough weapons available. They were already being overhauled or repaired. The Marines, whose commanders had stored and maintained their World War II surplus inventory of equipment and weapons, proved ready for deployment, but they were well under strength. And yet they did carry out some amphibious operations. How many were going? 360,000 U.S. forces going in. 10+% of them would not return or under a flag-draped coffin. The deaths and casualties were high on the other side as well. 1.5 to 3 million civilian deaths, and as we said, some of those were killed even before the, quote, police action war started. And then you actually had the combatants on the other side. South Korea lost 140,000 dead. North Korea, almost 300,000. China, almost 200,000. Soviet Union, 299 is the official number dead, that they were taking part, but not that big. North Korea continued to push, but the forces were finally gathered enough to push back.
MacArthur's goal of total victory seems within reach, but the war was far from over. On November 25th, China sends in troops, handily pushing the Allies back into South Korea. The Chinese cut off MacArthur's forces at the Chosin Reservoir. The men endure weeks of battle in sub-zero temperatures. more are lost to cold than to enemy fire. Without the president's consent or approval, MacArthur calls for a full-scale invasion of China. His defiance has pushed Truman to his limits. On April 11th, the president fires MacArthur for insubordination and calls him home. By summer 1951, the Korean conflict has bogged down into a bloody quagmire. No side can win without enormous further loss of life. Peace negotiations begin optimistically, but drag on for 2 years. So does the fighting.
And during that 2 years of talks, more, of course, were dying. Combat officially ending July 27, 1953, with the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement, allowing the exchange of prisoners, and that created the 2.5-mile-wide DMZ that we now have. You heard it mentioned that Truman fired General MacArthur. Why? Well, he fired him April 11, 1951, for insubordination. He had repeatedly directed Truman, or had repeatedly directed MacArthur, keep your lips shut, don't be talking. But MacArthur was sending public ultimatums to Chinese leadership and shared his dissenting views with sympathetic Republican congressmen. So I'd have to give Truman an acknowledgement for if a general is not following your orders, you're going to have to remove him, which he did. But again, this is often referred to as the Forgotten War because it was not as highlighted as World War II and, of course, Vietnam that followed later. The end result, 36,000 or so U.S. soldiers killed in a police action. The story behind the story tomorrow. 1979, you might recall a Chicago plane crash of a DC-10 and the fear that created across the flying public. Is it safe? And there are a lot of stories inside that story. That's our story behind the story tomorrow. And we'll be on the air at noon tomorrow. Make sure you join us at noon tomorrow. And if you miss it, a replay from 6 to 8. Coming up next, New York City schools, kids acting like they've been shot by police. That's a teaching lesson? We're going to get into it. You don't want to miss the next hour. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Their policy is so bad. That's why they have to. They are opposed to the Save America Act because they don't want voter ID. They don't want proof of citizenship. You know why? Because they have to cheat. Their policy is so bad that if they don't cheat, they wouldn't win an election. They're phenomenal cheaters, and they stick together. But you know, the people, the Democrat people, are 87% in favor of the Save America Act.
That is President Trump. I don't know what stat he pulled or where that source came from. I've seen different numbers, but certainly a high number of Democrats do believe you must be a legal citizen of our nation to vote in federal elections. By law it is anyway, and even in state and local elections. You want a trainload of illegals to come into your community and decide how your school board is elected and how they process and teach your kids? And there was a ruling today out of the Supreme Court that gives the Trump administration a victory. In fact, he got two victories in the Supreme Court regarding illegals coming across our nation's border. Illegally, we have a proper asylum process. And we also legally allow 1+ million illegals, I should say migrants, to come to our country each year. By lottery, basically. And, of course, we have a lot of them flying into the country just to drop an anchor baby. I know it's a slanderous, slurrous term. I would agree with it. But that's what they did. They came just to have the baby here because born on our soil, they currently are prescribed to be a U.S. citizen. We're waiting for the Supreme Court ruling on that. But today's ruling today in two different cases. One, making it clear that migrants who are turned away at the border before they even enter the U.S. are not entitled to apply for asylum. Trump said stop them south of the Mexico-Texas border. They can begin to adjudicate their cases from there. They don't come into our country, and then we give them a free passage to roam about America, and 2, 4, 5 years later, come back and go to a court and prove that you have a right to be here. And a lot of them, of course, under the Joe Biden, thank you, Joe Biden, open border policy. That's exactly what they did. And a lot of not just poor immigrants looking for a better life, but gangsters and cartel members and drug and child traffickers were using that open border policy. I ask again, how could any Democrat, I don't care how much you hate Trump, how can you sleep at night knowing that children were trafficked across the border, brought into our nation, possibly sold off to pedophile or prostitution dens? How do you sleep? I hear myself shouting. I do. I've had a couple of listeners say, but boy, you really get riled up. And I do. I damn well do, because I care about this and what we're doing here. That's why with every program, we're trying to not just give you news, analysis, and commentary, but education, that you will know more by the time you finish this hour than you do as we began. I promise you that. And let me break down again as a fact for the Supreme Court rulings today. One again said migrants who are turned away at the border before entering the U.S. are not entitled to apply for asylum. Another said the temporary status for Haitians and Syrians in our U.S. could not receive judicial relief to postpone revocation of their status while they're challenging it in court. No, they can be sent packing, deported. They came in illegally, they can be sent out. They can appeal to try to come back, but they don't stay here. Now, I know there are families that children are brought in and they're just brought here because their family came here. And I don't want to divide families up. And I don't want to go after those who are hardworking and just trying to make a better life. But in many cases, they're taking jobs from Americans. And many of them are still creating. Some of you might recall the wet foot, dry foot policy that we had at one time in the U.S., directly involving Cuban nationals. If they were intercepted at sea, trying to come by some kind of makeshift boat from Cuba, and we intercepted them, they were going back to Cuba. But if they got to our soil, if they got 1 foot on dry land, then they were allowed to stay. The Clinton administration formalized that in 1995. Then they had the 1966 Cuban Adjustment Act that was modified in the process, trying to stop dangerous mass migration using sea rafts. So if a Cuban migrant touched the U.S. land, they were generally paroled into our nation. They could apply for a green card after 1 year. The Obama administration did end that policy January 12, 2017. So since that date, Cuban migrants arriving at U.S. borders or intercepted at sea without a visa are treated just like migrants from other countries. But, of course, the attitude of the leftists has been, we don't need no stinking borders. In other words, you don't really have a country. If you don't have a border, you do not have a country. Again, thank you for joining us for our second hour here. If you missed the first hour, pull it up as a podcast. Believe me, there's stuff in there about protecting our children that is going unnoticed, but we're screaming from the rooftop about something that needs to be done. And later in this hour, in New York City, 5th grade students were participating in a dance pantomime, and they were all supposed to act like they were shot by police. They were shot by police, according to what the school instructor wanted them to do. What the hell does that teach children? You have some ideas. You don't need to be told by an expert, but I've got one coming up later to talk about the damage it creates, not just now, but for the future. And why in the hell would something like that be taking part? Because we've got leftist crazies running our schools, and especially in liberal blue cities and states. But these crazies are getting so out of hand that even CNN analyst Van Jones said, you look at what happened with New York the other day, and the Mondami socialist Marxists, claiming that's what they are winning on his endorsement.
Well, first of all, New York City matters because the two most exciting left-wing candidates are here, AOC and Mamdani, but also this is the stronghold for the establishment, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. This is a battle between the establishment and this insurgency, and the roof is collapsing on the Democratic Party establishment tonight.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about the other night when the polls were showing and the stats were coming in that all Mondami's socialist Marxist candidates were ousting basic Democrats. He mentioned Hakeem Jeffries. Now, Hakeem Jeffries asked the other day, what do you think about Fetterman calling some of your Democrat Party members dirtbags? Because that's what he did, and you're going to hear that in a moment. Jeffries just kind of laughed and said, well, we're a big tent party. You want dirtbags inside your tent? Really? Yesterday, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, said, and I stand corrected, that was Cory Booker that was making that statement yesterday. My bad. But Hakeem Jeffries, since he was mentioned in that piece by Van Jones, he said, I'm proud of the fact that several of my colleagues decisively won re-election. And he's trying to find the golden silver streak inside this loss to these progressives. And he said, I do think at the end of the day, individual congressional districts are a diverse group of people, diverse set of perspectives, and a wide variety of issues. And I think for us as House Democrats, we need to recognize our enemy is Donald Trump and MAGA extremists, not the extremists in our party. Look away. Look away. Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman calling them out.
The kind of people that are trying to run out of office, I mean, they're just good traditional kinds of Democrats you would have expected in New York City now. And now this has just become, really, it's just been the dancing days of the dirtbag left, you know, with some of these candidates are outrageous. You know, you have candidates, they abolish ICE, abolish the police, abolish the border. And she even said F Kamala Harris and more of these outrageous kinds of things. And then you have like Mandami. He was grieving. A Hamas sniper was killed by Israel just the other day, and he was grieving that. I mean, these are emerging the full pro-Hamas wing.
The pro-Hamas wing. Hakeem Jeffries, they are now part of your makeup of your party, and you want to say our enemy is Donald Trump. You better look inside your party. And for Cory Booker to look inside that tent who you've let in. Once again, Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman.
You have such contempt for Israel. I mean, of course, you're also anti-American and you're anti-Western civilization, and you're, anti-capitalism and the American way of life. I mean, now, they're all socialists, of course, and now there's communists and now Marxists, and now they're proud of this. The Democratic Party is going to continue to be anti-Israel, and I'll be the one that's going to continue to lean in and proud to stand with Israel through the midterms, and definitely lean into 28 for sure, proudly.
There is sanity inside the Democrat Party, but they're afraid to speak out, and they're being hijacked by the pro-Hamas wing and the other crazies that are inside the party right now. And even at the leadership level, a guy that should be able to make his own mind up apparently is caught up in the wind of this, all because fight against Trump, against anything else. We need to defeat Trump. We're talking about Senate leader Chuck Schumer, and Donald Trump says, look at what this man has become.
Well, Schumer's lost his way. He's become essentially a Palestinian. I think it's the greatest transformation of a political position I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer, who was a strong supporter of Israel, and he's become 100% Palestinian. In fact, I've asked for a beautiful, beautiful silk outfit to be sent in the Palestinian tradition. I'm going to send it to him as a birthday present. Now, it's the greatest transformation of a political ideology I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer is Jewish, and he was a strong supporter of Israel. Not that strong, because he let the Obama, even though he was opposed to it, He let the JCPOA get through. He could have fought that harder with Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? So, but Chuck Schumer's a Palestinian now.
And if you missed our first hour, shame on you. But I know you can't listen all the time. That's why we make podcasts available at LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook, or NewsTalkSTL podcast, or any podcast outlet. Search Larry Connors USA, you'll find it. And in the previous hour, Nigel Farage, the UK reform leader, talking about things are so bad in Europe right now. And now the England in UK, he says, I see the UK going the way of the rest of England, I should say of Europe. We've got Jews that say they're going to leave the country. They fear for their lives, even inside the UK, because we continue to bow down to Islamists and just accept it as a way of life, when it's not. I dare you to start listening to one of Larry Connors USA programs and find a spot where you can bail out and feel fully satisfied, because there's still more you want to hear before we wrap up this hour. Yeah, we build it that way. We want to keep you. We want to keep you listening, and I want you to multiply for us. Send podcasts to your family and friends, even your enemies. Make sure they get involved. And Donald Trump talking about Schumer, he's right on point. Schumer has lost his way. More so than Biden standing on a stage. Trump got GOP senators to reject the Dem efforts to handcuff his efforts in dealing with Iran just before they went on a 2-week break. Now, here's a question for a former Trump spokeswoman, Liz Harrington, and her answer clearly defines what was going on.
Do you think that the president's going to continue to do this? He'll just say, you know what, I'm not going to sign any more bills until you get rid of the filibuster so we can pass the SAVE Act?
Yes, and I think it's really at what cost, right? Because the Senate's not doing anything anyway. I mean, they haven't advanced the agenda. I see people online like blaming, oh, how could he do this? He's sabotaging the midterms. It's the complete opposite. The Republican Senate has been sabotaging President Trump, sabotaging the agenda. They've done next to nothing to move it forward. And the time for games is over. We're already in summer. We only have a few more months left. This needs to get done. And President Trump knows as well as anybody, they're setting him up to let Democrats cheat in November, and then the rest of his term will be over.
Which, by the way, there will be more to come. You do know that. And Trump is doing what he can right now with Iran. He finally got these Republican senators who were against him, one including Cassidy, who's not going to be coming back to Congress. Carolyn Levitt talks about Iran is an issue that Trump knows how to handle, and these guys don't.
It is ludicrous to assume that President Trump would ever sign on to a deal that compares in any way, shape, or form to the disastrous JCPOA that Barack Hussein Obama signed on to. They gave the Iranian regime pallets of cash. This deal is going to ensure that it benefits not just America's national security interests, but the American people as well. President Trump will make sure of it. And so now we're in this 60-day negotiating period at the direction of the president, headed up by the vice president, Special Envoy Witkoff, Jared Kushner. Trust in them. This is a team who made the impossible possible with respect to bringing the hostages home from Gaza. Nobody thought that could happen. It happened under the president, the vice president, and the national security team's leadership. So they'll continue to negotiate, ensure that we have a final deal that meets the needs of the American people in our country. President Trump, I know, will never sign on to a deal that does not serve this country and our national security interests. He is always looking out for America first.
So he got these senators to back off and quit trying to interfere with what I'm trying to accomplish to bring peace to the Middle East. Oh, but Senator Cassidy says, I'm not going to be bullied into silence. You can yap all you want. But Trump is moving forward. Coming up, New York City fifth graders in their class are told to act like you've been shot by police. What the hell? Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I've done 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. I came home with a brand new plane. I take the seat from Colombia, Mexico. I just planted up a holler down Copperhead Road. And now the DA's got a chopper in the air. We got streaming like I'm back over there. I learned a thing or two from Charlie, don't you know? You better stay away from Copperhead Road.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
All right, I'm going to gather these 5th graders in a New York City school and say, look, we're going to do a pantomime. You're going to do a dance, and you're going to dance around the room, and you're dancing, and you're full of life and everything, and then you're going to act like you've been shot. Give me your best impression of being shot. Oh, one other thing. You're shot by a cop. This was part of a classroom exercise in New York City. I don't need to tell this audience how appalling that is and how it sets in motion future issues with these children and their lives. But I do have an expert on board to give us her view, Dr. Carol Lieberman. I'm glad to have you with us, Doctor.
My pleasure.
So,
yes, it used to be in elementary school, you would have the good cop of the neighborhood come in and talk to you about, about what it's like to be a cop, or what, things that you should be doing that are good and that are bad, and, how to be good little boys and girls, or how to even have a career as a policeman, things like that. Now things have changed. They've become woke, and they are teaching you to dance in a way that you then fall down and pretend that cops killed you. In other words, they're teaching you cops are bad. Be afraid of cops.
Exactly. And any parent would recognize where that could eventually lead to anger, fear, everything that's bad. You just laid out. And I take it your dog is also barking about the anger over this.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yes, and this school, it's a very woke school. You would think that the parents, some parents were appalled because they didn't get notice. And there are lots of other things going on in that school that the parents haven't been getting notice about, like having a trans author come in and read a book about becoming trans.
Yeah.
It's all around woke. And you would think that the parents would get together and express their discontent about this, but obviously they at least haven't done it by now.
And you know what? Even if they're just supposedly dancing around and act like you got shot, why would you encourage children, fifth graders, even if it's not being shot by a cop, why would you encourage them to show me how you would act if you were shot? There's no connection to reality, and except that when it does happen, then they can say, well, here's how I would have fallen. Come on. Where would this thought process even begin? Where's the seed that began this cult?
The seed in a way is society, that part of society that is going woke. But the seed more directly is coming from the teacher who is in charge of this multicultural day. Every year they have a multicultural day, and this is the kinds of things that they encourage. They also have some of the grades did nice things, like reciting American Indian poetry, for example, but most of it was just very, very woke.
You're listening to Dr. Carol Lieberman, board-certified psychiatrist and an author of a book titled Lions and Tigers and Terrorists. Oh, my, how to protect your child in a time of terror. And in this case, I'd say the teacher is the terrorist.
That's right. And then the principal apparently also is all on board with this. And this is a school in New York City's Upper West Side, and I'm from New York originally, and it is a rather woke area. But it's not just New York; it's happening all around the country. Some places, obviously, more than others. But this is a big problem that we have, because then you wonder why kids grow up to be in violent protests and things like that. It starts in grade school.
Dr. Lieberman, by the way, has her own program, and your most recent show is Killing Ourselves by Suicidal Empathy. I think this fits the narrative exactly.
Yes. That's my terrorist therapist podcast. And I talk about how, suicidal empathy, in other words, having empathy for people who want to kill us.
And I'm watching Senator Fetterman the other day talking about all the crazies the Hamas wing is taking over the Democrat Party, and you got Senator Cory Booker saying, "Well, we will accept everyone. We're a big tent." And I've got Hakeem Jeffries today saying, "Well, we all have our differences, but our main enemy is Trump. Your main enemy is yourself and what you're doing to our nation and our kids."
Absolutely. And, this has really evolved. 9/11, of course, was by radical Islamist terrorists. And then there is this alliance called the Red-Green Alliance, where the green is terrorists and the red is the socio-communist Marxist people, progressives. But now we have accelerationism, where you can hate a lot of different kinds of people. You don't have to be, just against one kind of person. So there are the accelerationists who were the ones who made the plot to attack the White House on June 14th when the UFC event was going on.
Yeah.
They hated a lot of different kinds of people. They hated Trump.
Right.
They hated his cabinet, people close to him. They hated rich people. They knew a lot of rich people would be there. They hated Jews, and they knew that some congressmen who had been taking money from AIPAC, an Israeli lobbying group. So they were all there, all the different kinds of people that they could hate.
And they basically
were sitting there.
And they basically hate America, although they think they're doing this on behalf of America.
Absolutely. That's the key. That is why they are together. That's why they are forming these pacts, because they all hate America, want to destroy America, although they don't agree with each other, in lots of different ways, but they agree with one thing. They want the destruction of America.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier about how Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker were acting like, okay, well, you got all these progressives elected on Mondami's endorsement the other day, and we'll accept them. We'll work around. Our enemy is Donald Trump. The New York Attorney General Letitia James is absolutely infuriated over Mondami for endorsing these Democrat socialists. I want to read her statement. Some of these candidates he supported do not understand the politics of New York City. Well, that's one issue. The cultural differences from district to district, that's another. Who have not been part of the history and the struggle of some of these districts. In other words, she said they don't understand the issues of race and caste and class. I mean, as Van Jones of CNN political analyst said, the ceiling is falling in on the Democrats, but they're causing a hell of a lot of damage on the way out the door.
Yes. I read the New York Post every morning because my heart is still in New York, and it's just heartbreaking to see what Mamdani is doing, and not just Mamdani, but now also roping in, endorsing all these other people to have positions. But
I am concerned about adults, if they truly are, and an adult in mind as well as age at this point. But I'm so frightened of what they're doing to our younger generations. I keep seeing some things that saying more young people are turning to religion, to church. More young people are loving America. And I watch these World Cup nations come together, and every time their national anthem is played, their hand is over their heart, and they're bellowing their national anthem. And the dog barks.
He agrees with you.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Lieberman, what can we do? What can we do to silence the critics? Not your dog, but what can we do?
What can we do? We have to pay a lot of attention when we vote. Everybody has to vote, and they have to pay attention to what the candidates are endorsing. And we have to also pay attention to the schools, what kids are being taught in school.
Yes. And that's the other thing about them flooding our districts with illegals. Your dog agrees with everything I'm saying.
Yes.
What's your dog's name, by the way?
Lulu.
Well,
Lulu.
Give her a bone because she's earned it. Dr. Lieberman, thank you again for your time and your dog participating.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Carol Lieberman, worldwide American psychiatrist, maybe not so worldwide as a dog trainer. I'm going to let that slide. But this issue, the very fact that it would be decided, it's a good exercise for kids to dance around and then act like they are shot and fall to the ground dead. Oh, but not just being shot and falling to the ground dead, but you were shot by a cop. That extra little impetus there, that is simply to enrage kids against police and make them fear. And as she pointed out, what happened to days of inviting police officers to the school to talk about their job in protecting you? They still exist in some areas, but you get into these liberal bastions, this is the crap they're feeding your kids. Be aware of it. Pay attention to those school board meetings and who is elected to serve on the school board. I don't have kids in school anymore. But you do, or you have grandkids? Get involved. Coming up, Secretary Rubio exposing another fraud.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side. a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
This goes right to the criticisms that I keep hearing from that side over there about us not spending the money because we got rid of a USAID program. USAID basically was a program, was a system that was completely devoid of our public policy. It operated almost as an independent State Department, and oftentimes USAID was operating in contravention and contradiction of what the embassy was trying to accomplish in the host country. And one of the complaints you would get from many developing countries is that they would get flooded with NGOs that were picked for them. These NGOs would then operate in the country without even coordinating with the government, doing whatever they wanted and pursuing what they wanted. And in some cases, it extended well beyond food and medicine. It extended to political interference and all sorts of other activities in these countries that were undermining the national interest and the credibility of the United States. Now, these compacts in particular are promising and exciting because they are government-to-government arrangements. No longer do we put money into a bucket and says, this is for vaccines, or this is for medical care, or this is for standing up clinics globally. We are doing it individually, country by country. And the reason why that makes sense is because every country has unique needs.
That is Secretary of State Rubio talking about these NGOs that we were just dumping money into, especially during the Biden administration. No accountability to begin with. We don't know where it went. We know we were supposedly supporting something that would help those in need, like Catholic Charities. I'm not calling them out by name in particular, but that was one of the NGOs. But I don't know if there's been a full accounting of what Catholic Charities did with the money that was given them, how it was hijacked by the left supposedly to help provide for kids coming across the border illegally. And we know we continue to have to deal with this constant push and shove against not just adults, but especially our children. We were just discussing that with Dr. Carol Lieberman. If you missed that, again, I remind you of the podcast, please. And I ask it, when you pull up a podcast, share it with others. I want you to make sure that your family and friends know about what happened in this New York City school with fifth graders told to do a dance pantomime as part of a class curriculum and act like you're shot and fall down dead. Oh, I'm leaving out an important part. Act like you're shot by a cop and fall down dead. If you missed that interview, pull out this up, and again, share it with others. And I want to take a moment to also tell you, please make sure you let the sponsors on this program and NewsTalkSTL know how much you appreciate Larry Connors USA and NewsTalkSTL and all of our other hosts. These sponsors are standing for patriotism, and they're standing for our country. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. They want to make sure that the word gets out. They keep us on the air. Even if you don't need their particular product, you don't need their product at all. Just call them and thank them. Or you can do like the left and just continue to hide behind whatever you can get and fake it. Fake it until you make it, their attitude is. Which, by the way, a new study finds out that the University of Washington Medicine Center, this is not University of Washington in St. Louis. This is one Seattle, Washington. They deal with their Office of Healthcare Equity. They have 38 DEI officials. Yep, they still have it. Asserting that institutional racism has created inequities in society, even within our healthcare, and that results in healthcare disparities. We're committed to transforming the way healthcare is to provide these inequities. So they assembled the team. The team is 38 DEI officers, 5 workers at assistant level, with the Assistant Dean for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Research. Another 13 have the title of Director. Now, what do they do? Oh, they make sure that DEI policies are followed. That's not health care. That's DEI. That office is supposedly since 2021 has spent more than $18 million on this office. And the 38 employees list 77 different pronouns. What the hell would they know about medicine for men, women, boy, girl? I told you earlier that even New York Attorney General Letitia James is calling out and frustrated with Mondami's endorsement of these Marxist communist socialists that swept across New York City the other day, going into Congress. And by the way, one of them, former Democrat strategist James Carville, says one of them should not be even seated in her caucus. Her views are against anything any Democrat has. We believe in pluralism. She doesn't even believe in interracial dating. They elected someone like that? And Letitia James says, yeah, these people that got elected the other day with Mondami, they don't understand the issues of race and class. That's according to Letitia James, New York Attorney General. And she says other political colleagues in our party are disappointed in what Mondami is doing. And she's saying, but don't blow it up. Now, who do they blame? They blame Trump and MAGA for this happening. You are an idiot. You're an idiot. You're going to put all the blame on Trump and MAGA for what your own party is doing, dissolving, tearing itself apart, putting in all these leftist, Marxist, communists? Well, we're not going to finish this hour on that note. I will finish this hour on an uplifting point for you. But before that, it is very clear that in this nation, we have those who simply hate America. Whether Trump is there or not, they still hate America. White House spokeswoman Carolyn Leavitt.
It is completely ridiculous. It's unbelievable to see these people, these deranged leftists in algae costumes with Team Algae on their backs. What does that even mean? Only the Democrats could hate beautifying our nation's capital and making it a symbol of pride again. But this is what the American people elected President Trump to do. He made this promise to them on the campaign trail that he was going to make our nation's capital both safe and beautiful again. And it is a promise that he has kept. With respect to safety, violent crime has plummeted. The city is the safest it's been in generations. Murders are down 40%. And with respect to the beautification of the city, I live here working, of course, at the White House, and you can see it with your own eyes as you travel throughout the city. The homeless encampments are gone. You see the parks are cleaned up. The president has restored more than 120 monuments across the city. The National Park Service has used more than 150 tons of material to clean up the potholes that everybody hates. And I don't know about you and your audience, but this is the type of work that I want to see our tax dollars going towards.
Yes, absolutely. You take care of the potholes, you take care of the people, you made great strides. But if you're going to constantly mock them and denounce them and try to indoctrinate their children, you'll get away with it for a while, maybe longer than you should. But there will be a day of reckoning. And regarding this Team Algae that, supposedly has been putting stuff into the reflecting pool, Trump had recognized when he came in office, we need to do something. It's too shallow to begin with. The sunlight, that in itself creates algae. And it's been repaired and then drained and repaired again. And now apparently people have been cutting at some of the, I should say, the liner that's been placed in the pool. They're just trying to cause damage, and they're not going to get away with it. Carolyn Leavitt.
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. In fact, I spoke with the National Park Service just before joining the show. They now have 17 police reports that have been filed in just the matter of a few days. There's actually been 6 arrests at the reflecting pool where, again, these deranged individuals, many of them longtime donors to the Democrat Party, to Barack Obama, to Act Blue, that have been vandalizing and desecrating our federal monument, one of the most beautiful monuments in the world, the reflecting pool. And that's why President Trump is not going to stop with this effort. We're going to not only hold those people accountable, but we're going to fix the pool, continue to make it beautiful from this despicable vandalism just in time to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday next week.
But they hate America, Carolyn. They don't care about the 250th anniversary. And if they can damage that pool and make it look bad, they're trying. But I've got a report in front of me from TMZ publication stating the water, the reflecting pool, is looking blue and cleaner because Trump said go in there and make sure it's cleaned up again. But now they're having to deal with patches of grass around. Apparently acid or things like that were thrown on the grass around the pool. They want D.C. to look bad when people go there for the 250th anniversary, if you choose to do so. And isn't it great that our nation is helping host the World Cup while we celebrate our 250th anniversary? Tonight, USA-Turkey. It's a meaningless game for the USA. They're already in. But foreigners who have been coming here are seeing the truth about the USA, as one Indiana woman emphasized on her YouTube report.
So many of you reached out after my last video that I had to say this one more time. The media has been lying to you about America, and the World Cup just proved it. For years, European and Canadians have been fed the same narrative. America is dangerous. Americans are ignorant. The culture is shallow. The food will kill you. And people believed it. Why? Because they saw it on the news. They read it online. They never actually went. Then the World Cup came, and millions of people who had never set foot in the U.S. suddenly showed up. And you know what they found? Friendly people, incredible energy, stadiums that blew their minds, hospitality they didn't even expect. Video after video of Europeans and Canadians saying, I had no idea, I was completely wrong, this is nothing like what I was told. And that's exactly the problem. The media doesn't profit from you having a good experience. It profits from fear, division, outrage. A Canadian family having the time of their life in Texas doesn't get clicks, you know? A crime story does. So that's all you ever see. That's all you ever hear. And slowly, without even realizing it, your entire worldwide view gets shaped by people who want you to be afraid. And look, in my opinion, the World Cup didn't just bring football to America. It accidentally broke the most powerful propaganda machine in the world because people finally went and saw it for themselves. So stop letting a screen decide what you think about a place. Go experience it, because I promise you the truth is always different from what they're selling you. Always.
Well stated. Well stated. That's a woman from Indiana talking about how many who are coming here for the World Cup are seeing America in a way that was not presented to them. It's racist. You won't be appreciated or liked. They're being welcomed, not just for the dollars they bring, but their friendship and just coming to know America. But again, in the midst of our own nation, those who live here and who might actually be legal citizens, so many of them, well, Texas Congressman Gill.
Republicans, first of all, they love this country. They love its people. They love its culture and its heritage and want to see that preserved. I mean, we're conservatives. We want to conserve the America that we grew up in. And liberals, I think, fundamentally disagree with the founding principles. They fundamentally, I think on a core level, don't like the American people. They want to replace the American people oftentimes with foreigners. And that carries through. You know, if you don't love this country, how can you possibly be entrusted to govern this country for its own good?
Yeah, a perfect point. And again, with the Mondami-endorsed congressional candidates winning their primary, they'll end up being in Congress. James Carville, political analyst, says that's wrong. They shouldn't be there. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, she's upset with it. Governor Hochul's upset with it. But Mondami's happy. I got more socialist, communist, Marxists all lined up. And their plan is to turn this nation into exactly what I just said. Communist, Marxist nations. We're going to fight every step of the way. And again, Carville, when you got Letitia James, New York Attorney General, saying a lot of the people that got elected, these Mondami-backed candidates, they don't understand the issues of race and class. Well, Carville points out one of them they're going to seat said basically she doesn't even believe in interracial dating, and you put her in the Congress? Oh, but that would be something MAGA people would do, not the left. The left has done it. Venezuela suffered around Caracas 2 devastating 7+ quakes. Death toll going up, last reported nearing 50 and going up. But socialist Venezuela is thanking President Trump as he's sending in aid from the U.S. and private sector businesses are helping out. That's America. Larry Connors USA on the air at noon tomorrow. At noon. Remember our pledge, one nation.